Welcome to G.I.Joe Chronicles, Outpost Edition.
I trust your mission was equally well executed.
I want a stone cold righteous attention.
Militarily speaking, it's only fair to say that Cobra Commander is a world-class buffoon.
Hello, troops. I am Jim Meal, also known as Jim the Joe Junkie, and welcome to G.I.Joe Chronicles Outpost Episode 13, where we will chronologically discuss the toys, comics, cartoons, and many other aspects of G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero, which is my favorite pop culture subject. Without getting too bogged down in the details, just my co-host and I having a conversation and reminiscing. Returning once again to discuss some great vehicles is Jarrod Alberich, the yard sale artist, also known as Death Probe. Jarrod, that tunnel between Fort Longbox and the Outpost is coming in handy. How you doing?
It is. I'm doing good. I hopped on my ferret to drive down the tunnel today, even though I don't think that exists yet per where we are in the series. I think the ferret's like an 85 or 86. You'd know better than me.
Yeah, 85. You might have jumped on the chameleon.
Yeah, that must have been it.
Yeah, there you go.
It's getting swampy down in the tunnel. But no, man, I'm glad to be back. And I guess we should talk about our special missions.
Absolutely. What do you got?
Oh, man. I tell you what, I haven't done a ton G.I. Joe related, although I was excited to get my digital copies of the Skybound Complete Collection came in like a couple days ago, and that was fun. Just got back from Dragon Con about almost 2 weeks ago now. And I spent like half an hour talking to Larry Hama. He invited me back behind his table. He does the thing where he's had military challenge coins made. I don't know if you're familiar with this. You know the concept of a military challenge coin. You know, different units you go to all have coins and different events. And I have a bunch of them from my military career. Well, he very cleverly has a specific one made for him. It's the Chaplain's Assistant Motor Pool coin. They're very cool because they just look like a real military coin. You'd have to know. You'd have to be a G.I. Joe fan to know this is a Joe bit, right? They're great. I was very jealous of my brother Jason, who got one. Larry gave him one at Heroes Con. I wasn't there when it happened. Jason just came, hey, he gave me this. So here I'm at Dragon Con, and Pat and I go down there, and he has a sign that says $30 for the challenge coin to non-vets. And I said, well, how much is it for a veteran? And he said, it's free. And I produced my VA ID card, and he did the classic where he puts it in his hand, shakes my hand to transfer it to me. And I said, great, and then Pat says, well, I'm not a veteran. And Larry's like, well, that'll be $30. So Pat does have one, though. What else? There was one other thing that was on my mind, G.I. Joe related. What was it? Oh, I remember what it was. I was going to brag on myself. I completely sold out of all my original book page sketches that I brought with me. Of course, I sold a bunch of prints, but I sold out of all my originals. I had Dr. Mindbender was the only G.I. Joe guy that I drew. You know how I draw him on the military manuals. I had Dr. Mindbender. I thought he's so obscure, he's just going to sit in my originals bin forever. The right customer came up and was like, this one's mine, right? So I am all sold out of G.I. Joe originals. Got nothing to give. But I did find at a Goodwill about a week ago, I found a really cool military manual. It was a U.S. manual, but it was all about the Russian troop movements and like how Russia basically does their military movements and things like that. And I thought, man, I might have to draw some October Guard on these.
That's what I was thinking. There's some good October Guard characters.
So that's what I got kicking around. That went way too long. What have you been up?
On the Joe side, I got my digital downloads as well. I was actually listening to you and Delvin on Tuesday. It was Tuesday night. I was listening to you guys. Email popped up. And
that's why you disappeared from the chat.
That's why I disappeared.
You just dove into some digital Joe.
Oh, yeah. I got those, and I went to a flea market. It is a flea market. I mean, there's anything, everything, good, bad. I've got some good deals there up in Burley Park. And I'm walking through, and this guy had 2 actual comic books and 2 of the G.I. Joe digests on his table. And I already bought some stuff off of him. And I'm paying for my stuff, and I look down, and there they are. I'm like, well, how much you want for all those? The 2 magazines, I'll 2 for $5. I'm like, oh, heck yeah. How about 10 for all of them? He goes, yes, absolutely. So, okay. So the 2 comics were issues 2 and 3, the first printing direct editions.
Oh, that's not bad.
Number 2 is the direct edition first printing is the one that's hard to find.
Yeah. That was at the point where they knew they were doing good, but they didn't know how good.
Yep.
So I think 2 has a smaller print run than it probably should.
Yes. Those 2 issues were the last 2 I needed of the first 10 issues to finish my second printing, reprint, newsstand direct edition issues. I'm done 1 through 10.
Adjectives.
I know. Right?
But that's awesome, man. Yeah. So, that's really cool. That is super cool.
And recently, as we were talking before the show, I just came back from camping. And as you mentioned, you can smell me through the internet because I have not taken a shower yet. And so we're going to make this as quick as possible so I can get the stink off of me.
So you got that campfire smoke smell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, spent some time with family. And
that is great. And it's really cool that you're able to. It's nothing so exciting as just finding that little bit that you've been looking for, just laying on a table at a reasonable price. You know, I go to my flea market and I've like one guy at the flea market who specializes in figure, like all action figures. Every once in a while, he'll get a Joe or 2, and he kind of knows what he has. Just a regular loose Joe. He usually asks about $5 for him. And I used to think that was highway robbery, but now I've realized that it's kind of decent these days as Joe figure prices continue to rise.
When I'm collecting, I like to find them stuff in the wild, and
it's so much more fun.
It's so much more fun. So there's very few items I've gone on eBay and bought or anything like that. Okay, thanks, Jarrod, for sharing. As we have discussed on previous episodes, we are going to split each year up into 2 segments. May turn into 3 because of the way we're splitting the comics up. We'll get into that on later episodes. For the toys, this means that we are going to discuss the figures in part 1 of the associated year and the vehicles and play sets of the associated year in part 2. This will allow us to discuss each figure and vehicle a little more. So with the introduction out of the way and the fine print out of the way, let's roll right into our first segment, the motor pool.
It's here, the G.I. Joe collection. G.I. Joe from Hasbro.
And what is an army without their means of deployment? G.I. Joe and Cobra had some of the best vehicles and play sets of any toy line ever. This episode, we will be discussing the legendary vehicles of 1984, which was a great year for me. We discussed how good the figures and the characters of 84 were previously. Were the vehicles of 84 as good as the characters of that year? Were they better? Were they worse? We're going to let you know. Once again, this year has many iconic and memorable vehicles. Both the Joes and the Cobras get upgrades on the land, sea, and air. Hovercrafts, 4-wheel drives, and a VTOL, which stands for vertical takeoff and landing, for those of you who are not in the know. You probably wanted me to read it this way, though. Hovercrafts, 4-wheel drives, and a VTOL, oh my. Here at the Outpost, we'll be using multiple sources of information on these spectacular vehicles. We're going to use 3djoes.com, yojo.com, the ultimate guide to G.I. Joe book, and recently added to Jim's library, Creating G.I. Joe, as well as our 40-plus-year-old memories. So they're probably getting sketchier and sketchier as we go.
That's why we have to have reference books, so that we can be reminded.
If it wasn't for Yo-Joe, it's funny. You know, I do G.I. Joe Chronicles with Pat. We have guests on. Oh, my favorite vehicle was this. And I'm like, yes, that's cool in the background. I'm like, clickety, clicking it up. Like, oh, yeah, I remember that one now.
All right. Before we begin discussing these vehicles in detail, Jarrod, do you have any general memories of these vehicles from 1984? Anything that pops up that just can go, I remember when I got that vehicle and this is what I was doing?
100%. Yes. We're going to talk about a bunch of them, but I pulled up the page of yojo.com and I immediately clicked with the Chameleon, the Rattler, and of course, maybe the best vehicle of the entire line ever, the Whale. I will get to tell my whale story for, I don't know, the 40th time on the network on this episode. So I'm looking forward to that.
84 and 85 are, as I've said before, these are like some of the best years in my memory. 86, 87, they're great, but this is where I'm like, whether they were on the cartoon or I got them for Christmas or birthday, just overall, I was a perfect age. All these are just great.
Just like the figure line, they're really hitting their stride. This is the sweet spot right here.
Absolutely. So let's get the motors running on these vehicles of 1984. Let's start with the Cobra vehicles this time instead of the Joes. And the first one up is the Chameleon.
There's Zartan! He's escaping in the Chameleon! Let's go get him! Joe!
As we discussed last figure episode, came with Zartan, or Zartan came with the chameleon. I don't know how you want to look at that, but it is a small swamp skier that he rode on. It changed colors just like he did. Parts of it did. And what was neat was, as you can see, it came with a box. So you could take the skis off this chameleon, put them on the box, and everything would fit inside that box. And he could pull them through the wherever he was going. It's part of the deception thing. But did you have? You know what? I'm not even gonna. I shouldn't even ask because I know you had this as a kid.
I did. One of my aunts got this for me. And as I mentioned on the last episode, I was so excited. I thought the color change would happen faster. I didn't realize you had to be a little patient when he put it out in the sun, but it was still cool to do that. Like I said in the last episode, I live about maybe 6 miles from where I was when I got that vehicle. I drive there right now and go to that exact driveway and show you where I set that thing out in the sun. So yeah, definitely cool. We did talk last episode a bit about, and I think we tangent a bit, and I'm going to do it again here. It's always neat when they do the little sort of figure plus a little, I think of Zartan, I think of Serpentor every time. There's just a little vehicle that comes with it, or like Tomax comes with the same amount, just that little push, that's always cool.
Yeah, it was just that little bit extra. I remember getting this one as a kid, and I think my brother got his tank. For some reason, we got them both at the same time. I can't remember why. And I remember looking at it going, yeah, pretty cool. Of course, I think it was around Christmas time because I remember it was cold out. So I use it in the snow more than I did the water when I got it. So this one it's just a small little vehicle, little add-in. I remember seeing it on the cartoon quite a bit. They used it. So yeah, pretty neat.
Pretty neat indeed. And I guess that means it's time for me to talk about the Cobra Asp. The Cobra Asp. This was I think this was a tow behind vehicle that it could be towed by a hiss or maybe a stinger, maybe both. I never had it. It's basically an anti-aircraft gun. It's all decked out in what I call Cobra Blue. And that's about it. It's a tow behind vehicle that you can set up and do anti-aircraft with. And it's kind of neat and all, but I don't have a strong connection to it simply because I never owned one. I'm going off of memory here. I have not clicked on the website. I don't think it came with any figure. I think it was all by itself. Yeah, I just verified that myself. And there you have it. Cobra Asp. Kind of neat. I bet Jim owns one or 7.
I've got 2 and a bunch of pieces of others. Yeah, this assault system pod was a tow behind, like you said. And as a kid, you don't think about it. But as an adult, as you're looking at some of these vehicles going, yeah, Cobra didn't care about their troops because that nice open canopy is not very safe.
Well, I mean, you're just a sitting target, by the way. Once you're set, you're set.
Yeah.
You know? But I guess that's anti-aircraft guns in the real world. So.
Yeah. I like the towables, the trailers. I never had one as a kid. My cousin did. But growing up, yeah, it's one of those that I've seeked out, and I've got a customizing idea for one that I haven't had a chance to do. I've got lots of customizing ideas. It's called Time, and we'll see which one happens first.
Right.
No, it's like you said, it's Cobra Blue. Used in the cartoon a lot. And the one in the comic, the time that I remember is, again, on that atoll when the whale is chasing them. They're going back and forth, and they can't spin them quick enough. And that's in the comic book. That's the time I remember them. All right. Next up is the Cobra Claw, which stands for Covert Light Aerial Weapon. And for a little vehicle, this is basically it's a jetpack. The figure goes onto, has some wheels on it that articulate a couple missiles. And for a little vehicle, I think I had this. And I remember being amazed at how much playability there was in there. It had the wings that popped in and out, the wheels that went up. Okay, Mr. Aircraft Guy, rudders or ailerons?
Yes, aileron. Yeah, I can't ever say it either, but
yeah.
Air rudders. We'll call them air rudders.
There you go.
That's what they taught me in the Air Force. I have trouble saying that word as well. Sometimes I cheat and call them winglets.
Hey, whatever you want to call them. I remember just the playability and how much was built into there. I don't know if I had it or my brother did, but I remember having it. I want to see, did I have a price on it? $2.79.
Oh, really? I was looking at mine said $1.89. So
okay,
we're right there, about $2.
Yeah, crazy. That's less than a figure.
Which makes sense because this really is a glorified backpack.
It is.
But it's cool.
It is cool. Playability is great. What are your thoughts on it?
It's the claw, and you're afraid of the claw. I'm quoting from Liar Liar now.
No,
Yeah, it's a
that's
glorified
Inspector Gadget.
What's that?
That's Inspector Gadget. That's
That's
also
yes,
Yeah.
the claw. I forgot about claw. Inspector Gadget. Yeah, like I said, it's kind of a glorified backpack. I think what really makes it cool, what really elevates it, is the cover to G.I. Joe number. Do it for me, Jim.
24.
4. I was gonna say I should have guessed 24. Yes, I think Cobra Commander's in it, and Roadblock is tackling Storm Shadow on that cover. It's a Beatty Zek. I'm pretty sure it's wonderful. That's what really makes me remember the.
No,
I think it's an early Beatty Zek. Verified. It's a Beatty.
Is it?
It's a Zek and Beatty. Yeah.
Okay, that is.
Yeah, I knew this was right about the time they started doing them. It's like
Oh yeah, he is. He did issue 26. So yeah, it's not that much earlier than.
I want to say their first one, because 23 was a Michael Golden. Their first one might have been either 22 or 20. No, 22 was Klaus Janson. So 24 might be their first one together.
I think it is. I did not realize they were that early, because they go all the way up into the early 50s.
Yeah, they make a run all the way up into the 50s as well, especially if you count special missions. I know him and Beatty were on number 1, but I think might have been Zek solo. Now we're getting to the weeds. But, but
anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know how you're shocked, though, how it shocked you, because I was at a con sitting with Beatty at the table to my right, and I was like, hey, I picked up these G.I. Joe comics out of a dollar bin, right? He goes, give me 25. And I hand him 25, and he signs it, and I was like, why is he signing 25? And I was like, I didn't realize that my good friend sitting next to me had actually done that cover. I was like, oh, you did this one? He's like, yeah, I did this one. He got all upset with me,
I think I've got issue 26 signed by him.
Zek or Beatty?
Zek.
Okay, yeah, mine is signed by the anchor.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention on the Cobra Claw is it comes with a little bomb that sticks in the.
It does, like 2 little missiles and a bomb.
Yeah, so you can use it as a drone. I forgot about that.
That's cool. Yeah.
All right, now that we've run those rabbits a little bit, what's next up, Jarrod?
Next up is one of the greatest vehicles in the entire line, according to Jarrod. It is the Cobra Rattler.
Cobra Rattler, it's the wickedest weapon yet, Rattler's gonna get G.I. Joe.
I had the Rattler. I'm a big fan of the Rattler. I'm a big fan of Wild Weasel, who came with the Rattler. But let me tell you about it, just in case you didn't know. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't know why you're here if I have to tell you about it. But hey, welcome either way. We're happy to have you. The Cobra Rattler is basically an A10 Warthog that has been a little Cobra-fied. The coolest change to it, I should remind everybody, it's what I call Cobra Blue. The biggest change to it is they did a really cool little vertical takeoff and landing with it that you could flip the wings so it could take off vertically. Its tail section is a little different from an actual A10 Warthog. If my memory serves correct, the A10 is a twin engine, and the 2 engines are more towards the rear. In this one, they mount a couple of engines in the wings and a 3rd engine in the tail section. It is armed for bear. It comes with a bunch of bombs and missiles. It's got a really cool Gatling gun. It's got a top turret, so the backseat driver can also get into the fight. My favorite thing about it, I think, is weirdly specific, but it came with these little panels you could swap out for battle damage. And I always liked figures and toys that did that little battle damage, because it made the playability of it just that much more fun. I'll always think of this, and I'll always think of the He-Man and Skeletors, where you could hit their chest and it would flip to show scar damage on the chest. Those are really cool, and I get fully excited about it because I totally had the Rattler. I got it probably the year or 2 after that I got the Sky Striker, and what a great duo they made. That's what I got, my friend.
The Rattler was a great nemesis to the Sky Striker. Speaking of which, pulling out of the Creating G.I. Joe by Dan Klingensmith, it was originally designed to be a G.I. Joe vehicle, but they switched it because the Cobra Air Squadron was not very robust at the time. So they made it into a Cobra vehicle.
It makes sense. That makes sense on a couple of levels, too, because we talk about how great the rivalry is between Ace and the Sky Striker and Wild Weasel and the Rattler, which I think there was a whole comic issue dedicated to that. And as I like to remind everyone who ever read that issue, Wild Weasel is clearly the better pilot, because Ace's craft is made for air-to-air combat. This is based off an A-10, which is not made for that. This is ground support only. And it does a fantastic job of no aircraft is loved more by the United States soldier on the ground than to see an A-10 coming to back them up, because that thing will ruin the enemy's day. You can go out and watch YouTube footage probably right now of an armored vehicle with just Gatling guns only will just tear it to absolute shreds. It's incredible. It's so powerful, the plane slows down a little bit when they fire the Gatling gun just because of how much force is coming out of that thing.
When I lived in Indiana, just north of Fort Wayne, the Air National Guard that was stationed there had the A-10 Warthogs, and they would do flyover like once a month or something like that. And my house was right under the air flight. They're amazing to just see and listen and just,
rabbit hole, because I'm going to make this the longest episode ever because I just want to get in the shower.
I figured we would with the Rattler a little bit.
Well, I just love the A-10 in general. The Thunderbolt is what it's technically called, but everybody calls it a Warthog. The titanium bathtub, you may be familiar with that the cockpit is made literally as a titanium bathtub, so it can soak up a whole bunch of damage because it's not fast, so the guys on the ground can shoot at it, but it can soak up. I've seen footage of these things landing with parts of the tail gone, parts of a wing gone. These things are so robust, and there came a time, because they're pretty old airframe, they were aging out, and the Air Force was like, I don't know if we need these anymore. And the Army literally said, we will buy them all from you. And we will take this aircraft into our own inventory. And the Air Force was like, no, we can't have that. So they decided to renew their rental agreement with the A-10 Warthog. And it's still in service to this day. An incredible aircraft.
And this is where Hasbro is still including this realistic part of the military. We'll have to see where that kind of really tapers off. They keep some of it throughout the whole thing, but it's still really strong in 84 with this aircraft right here. Yeah, it's an amazing aircraft. Very difficult to find all the pieces. Usually, like you said, one of the four or all of the four of the panels are missing because you can take them on and off. And then how many bombs and missiles? Well,
100
with
something.
Oh, yeah. No, just an amazing, iconic vehicle.
Yeah, and Wild Weasel, we talked about him last time as a cool character. He elevates because they could have said, this is the Cobra Rattler pilot, but they made him an actual character, which elevates him.
He was a named figure. Wasn't used a lot in the comics, but I think it was issue 34 that you're talking about.
I'm prepared to believe you.
Larry attempted later on in the run to do some of those air-to-air combat issues, but he couldn't capture it quite like that one did.
Yeah, the one in Special Mission is pretty good.
There was a couple special missions like that, wasn't there?
Oh, I don't. We've been going through Chronicles.
Yeah,
we've come to the first one, which was quite good. I don't remember the next one, but I'm excited to get to it.
It's in the teens, I think. Well, then the final issue 28 with quite a few of them. All right, so we got the Rattler covered. Let's get back to the ground and talk about the Cobra Stinger. One of my favorite, because I own a black Jeep myself. And for 5 or 6 years, I had on the side of the hood, on each side, I had a vinyl decal that said Stinger. And everybody's like, when did they make that model? I said, well, there's only one like it, and that's mine.
84. The answer is 84.
Right, 84. But it is a black four-wheel drive vehicle, pretty much the same as the Vamp. There is some differences on the hood, I think. It's black with side doors on it, with a missile rack on the back, and a place for two characters to stand on the back and catch some of the rocket propulsion.
Right in the face.
Right in the face. This is one of those iconic vehicles, again, that they used quite a bit, and it's very universal. They could use it in all different kinds of environments. And it came with that great gray Cobra Stinger driver, not named, but still a great figure. What do you have, or do you have any memories of the Stinger?
I didn't own a Stinger, but I really like it. I am a sucker. I think we might have talked about this on the Sub-Teams episode. I'm kind of a sucker for the repurposed vehicle. I think it's just neat when they take something and give it a whole new look. Like this time, they basically took a Vamp and made a Cobra version of it. And while the older, cynical Jarrod is like, just, saving money, getting more money out of the kids, I still like it. Just as I did when I was a kid. It's just kind of a cool new look. So like I was all aboard on Tiger Force and all that stuff. It's just a neat, it's sort of a freshen up on a classic vehicle. And I really like them when they switch sides, when a Joe vehicle becomes a Cobra vehicle or vice versa. That's always really cool. But yeah, the Stinger just has a great look. The red and black. They didn't go with Cobra Blue again, which would have been okay with me, but red and black really rocks. I'm surprised that your local law enforcement lets you get away with those red missiles on your Jeep, but
I didn't have the red missiles. I just had the sticker on the side.
Well, not that they know of, right?
Exactly. Now, you mentioned the black. Something that's forgotten, and I forget it quite often. Everybody calls it the Stinger, right? Well, it's the Cobra Night Attack 4-wheel drive Stinger.
Oh.
Look at the box art.
Oh.
So that's one of the reasons why it's the black.
I know all about night attacks. That's how I got fired.
Yep.
No need to rehash that.
We've discussed that already. We're moving on.
Matter of public record. Moving on, indeed. Let's pull up the Cobra water moccasin. Kind of their little swamp buggy vehicle. The big fan-powered green swamp hopper, really. It's just kind of, if you think about those ones that you've seen in like the movies, the swamp boats, except make it a little more militaristic. And there you go. It's got a really neat color to it that they don't use a lot in Cobra, sort of a dark turquoise, if you will. And this one also, I believe, gets elevated because it came with Copperhead, who we discussed in the previous episode where we discussed toys. So yeah, it's a cool little vehicle. I always liked it. I think what really drew me to it was its unique color, and I think Copperhead was cool, but I never had one. What about you, Jim?
I never had one as a kid. Back in the day, I liked it, never got it. It's big enough, you get 4 characters on there, but it's small, so it's easy to carry around. I can definitely see the intrigue of wanting it. Never had it. It's another one of those iconic vehicles that they used all the time in the cartoon. This was another one, though, that it was originally intended for a Joe vehicle with Army drab coloring.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It doesn't say why they switched it, but it was another one originally intended for Joe's. An alternate name for it was Swamp Cruiser. Not quite as menacing as Water Moccasin. On the aftermarket, it's very difficult to find complete. Very similar to another vehicle we're going to talk about. Those vanes on the back are always broken. Okay, so that's all of the Cobra vehicles. Anything else before we move on to the Joes, Jarrod?
No, it's a good lineup of Cobra vehicles. Maybe one of the strongest years ever, but hey, I guess we'll find out as the show goes on.
So, Jarrod, next up, we're going to talk about the Joes, and I'm going to let you discuss one of the best G.I. Joe vehicles, almost a playset around. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, you are clearly alluding to the Killer Whale.
G.I. Joe hovercraft holds 9 Joes. It's the big new way to bring the Joe team into action, and it floats on water.
I've never met a Joe fan that didn't hold this vehicle in high esteem. It is very, very large. It's a hovercraft of OD green nature. And man, this thing is just decked out. It's got places to put Joes like everywhere. It's got missiles. It's got cannons. It's got machine guns. It's got like a little escape sled or a little like a one-man water sled thing that comes out of it. It's just super, super cool. And I definitely got this one. Man, I think I got it kind of late in its lifespan because it was released in 84, discontinued in 86. And I think it was about 86 when I got it. So maybe my parents were shrewd and found it on sale maybe as it was going out. I don't know. I'm just glad that I got it. And before I tell my story again about what makes my whale even the best whale, I just want to, like, especially as we move into 85, 86, like having the whale and the hydrofoil and the battle platform was just, there's something nice about that trio. You can have such a wonderful playtime. And I had all 3, and it was wonderful. But anyway, let's get back to the whale. Not only is it just freaking great, and it's big, and it's really cool. It comes with Cutter, who's a cool character. My sister had one of these like little battery-powered telephones that you would dial, and then like the telephone would talk to you. And it had broken. She'd managed to break it. And my dad's kind of a crafty guy, so he took the guts out of this thing, and basically he took the motor out and the little power pack that you hook a 9-volt battery to it. And he took my whale and he did some of this and some of that. And the next thing I know, I have this little powered switch in my whale that my dad had the little metal rod from the telephone sticking out the back. And he I don't know where he even got a little propeller for it, but he'd super glued a propeller on the back. So now I had a little switch that I could turn it on and it would self-propel through the water. So I would take that thing out into, we had like a little kiddie pool in the backyard, and I'd put it in the kiddie pool and I'd hit the switch and it was zzz, and it would just go and go. And it was the greatest thing ever. Back to you, Jim.
That would be really, really cool.
Yeah, Dad really souped that one up.
There's a couple things when you were talking about the whale. There's so many things you couldn't have grabbed all of them, but the depth charges.
I forgot the depth charges. Yep,
the little mini bike off the one side.
The bike.
The bike. Yes.
Bike. I just thought of the sled. I forgot about the bike.
Not all of us had. Okay. Not everyone that had the whale had an electric motor on them. You had that little push button. Fans would spin. I don't think I hold as much lament as Jason does to you with the Sky Striker, but my brother got this vehicle for Christmas one year and I didn't, and I was just a tinge of jealousy. And I don't think quite as bad as you and Jason, but he did let me play with it, so that was helpful. This is it's a play set. I mean, it is just everything on it. You could do so much with it. And like you said, the tactical battle platform coming out the next year, the hydrofoil coming out the next year, and then the devilfish. And it can hold so many characters.
If I remember correctly, on its underside, there was like wheels so you could roll it on the ground, but it was also watertight. You could use it as a boat, really. Yeah. It was great.
And this is another one of those. I've got a custom in process where I'm going to open up that front a little bit more so I actually fit small vehicles inside of it. Oh, yeah. It's already, I've got it marked off and I've started cutting it, so I just got to get back to it. Anything else on the whale before we move on?
That's great toy.
Absolutely. All right. So my next one is the G.I. Joe Shark, which stands for Submersible High-Speed Attack and Reconnaissance Craft. I think sometimes they were stretching on some of this stuff, but this is one of those that G.I. Joe's kind of always in that 5 minutes in the future type thing. And this is one of those vehicles that, expresses that. When I started recollecting Joes back in 2010, 2012, this is one of the first vehicles I picked up because I absolutely adore the uniqueness of it. There's something about the sharp angles and the unique shape. It's gray. It's got a couple cannons that you can pop up on the wings. I think it comes with a couple bombs or missiles, and then canopy that the character lays down in. Again, it's a great vehicle. I love it. How about you?
Well, it wouldn't be an episode of you and I talking figures if I didn't bring up James Bond. And this one
always comes back to James Bond, right?
It does. This one always reminds me of The Spy Who Loved Me with the white Lotus that goes in the water and becomes a submarine. Like, this is basically, I think they saw that and they were like, let's do that except with a jet. Like, it's a jet and submarine. I mean, it even kind of has the color and the angular look of the Lotus in a weird way. Maybe that's just my James Bond brain. Either way, it is a very cool, unique. I love the phrase you use, 5 minutes in the future. That's very accurate. Never had it. To me, though, just sort of watching the commercials and stuff, I thought this is probably the greatest bath time toy that G.I. Joe ever made. But I did not ever have one, and it certainly is cool.
I don't know if I got it from a store or I obtained it in a trade or something. I remember having one. You know how the Devilfish was a very inexpensive. I mean, this one comes with a character, so
yeah.
But everybody had a Devilfish. I think almost everybody had a shark.
Almost everybody.
Almost, except for sorry.
I looked it up. I think its initial retail was like $6.50 or $7.
Yeah. Okay.
Not bad.
No.
Bad.
Considering a figure at the time was probably $2.
Yeah. $2.50. So. Yeah. These days they're like $25 each, but don't get me started.
That's a figure. The vehicle's $100. Or well, the smaller vehicles, the flight pods and stuff with a figure, $50 some.
Anyway, don't let me be grumpy. Let me bring it back.
Yeah, bring it back.
Let's bring it back to the next Joe vehicle, which to me looks like it is the Skyhawk.
He's escaping in the Cobra Claw. Get the Nick Jones and get him aboard the Skyhawk.
I would consider the Skyhawk. You just mentioned about vehicles that everybody had. I swear everybody owned a Skyhawk. Kids I knew that didn't even really collect G.I. Joe, like He-Man kids, still had a Skyhawk. I feel like you go to school some random Wednesday and they're like, hey, today's lunch is chicken and dumplings and a Skyhawk. They just like came with lunch one day or something.
Like the Happy Meal, right?
Exactly. This is a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that kind of makes no sense when you think about it from a physics point of view. How this thing could possibly fly. This is sort of like the definition of a cheapy toy that every kid could afford to enhance their G.I. Joe experience, but it's got a real cool design. It's basically a green cockpit with 2 engines on the back of it and like a couple of stabilizers and a spoiler. It's got black skis on it. It's small, but it has 2 cannons sticking out the front. It comes with 2 black missiles that it can launch. I just remember this being used heavily in the cartoon. Of course, I'll have to go to Jim's memory for this because my cartoon memory is just really a handful that we had on VHS when I lived in Germany. I wasn't able to see all the episodes like some of you cool kids were. But I swear the Skyhawk it's like the most ubiquitous Joe vehicle. I feel like it shows up every time you turn around. When you think about Joe's, it's almost like it's just there. I don't believe it came with any kind of pilot or whatever. That is going to lead me to my question for Jim, and then he's going to weigh in on the Skyhawk. Who did you most associate with putting in this thing?
Unfortunately, Duke.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, is he on the box art or something? I don't know. I just feel, or maybe it's from the cartoon. It just feels like Duke or Flint kind of belong in this thing.
Yeah, Duke and Flint, probably from the cartoon. You were mentioning how often it was used in the cartoon, and they used them not just in the sky. The skis would allow them to ski over the water, the snow. When they were designing it, that was their intent, was for the vehicle to be used that way.
Oh, it's supposed to be like land-based or water-based.
It's a very versatile, vehicle. This would be a good time to mention because, Jarrod mentioned he had a difficult time describing it. First of all, as we said, we're using 3djoes.com and yojo.com. But if you're listening to it in a podcast form, if you go to YouTube, I put pictures with all of the items that we are describing. While you're listening to it, you can watch and see what we're actually talking about.
Nice. Nice.
The next one was the Slugger, which is a self-propelled cannon. And this one, I know I didn't have one as a kid, but it's a 6-wheeled vehicle. Very simple. Basically, it was 6 wheels, had a cockpit for the driver, and a very large cannon. Oh, it did have a little thing you could pull out in the back that was supposed to pull out and drop down to simulate a stop for the cannon so that it doesn't travel backwards. They weren't just saying, let's put this vehicle off. They were thinking, okay, this thing shoots, it's going to go backwards. They were thinking about that. What do you have, or what are your memories on the Slugger, if you have any?
I don't really. I didn't know anybody that had the Slugger. I didn't have a Slugger. What just befuddling my 48-year-old foggy brain at this point is, as long as I can remember, I had Thunder, the driver, and all of his gear. How the heck did I end up with that and I never owned a Slugger? I don't know.
Did you happen to obtain him with Firefly?
Well, that could maybe. I don't know. I'm looking on yojo.com right now, and they're saying that Thunder was available as a mail order in the 87. Maybe I mail ordered him, or maybe I traded to some other kid. I don't know. But yeah, I definitely had Thunder and all of his cool little, because I remember I liked his visor a lot and all that stuff. But anyway, we're here to talk about the Slugger, which, I have no memory of. I never owned one. I never knew anyone who owned one. And the end. That's all I got on that.
I didn't know a lot of people back in the day that had the Slugger either. Now, when I'm buying a lot, there's usually a Slugger in there. And I don't understand, did they just, like you, were the mail away, they close them out, or I just didn't have the cool friends? I don't know. What do you want to talk about, Jarrod?
I want to talk about the Vamp Mark II. So the Vamp Mark II is pretty much like the old Vamp, except it's got sort of that brown, that khaki brown coloring and black trim all over. It's got black doors and a black hood, and it's got, instead of the guns in the back, it's got a missile rack with there's 3 or 4 black missiles, going from memory here, 4 according to the picture I just found. And this is one of those rare times where I feel like the sequel is maybe better than the original. I think the Vamp Mark II is better looking. I mean, they've got a special place in my heart for the original Vamp. What was really cool about it was they could have, because they were already kind of doing that thing where we already have some molds here from the Vamp we can reuse, and I've already told you I'm kind of a sucker for that. This one definitely felt a little more stylish, and they did the same thing with the driver. Clutch had khaki brown outfit with dark brown trim and black boots and a black gun holster. He really matches the vehicle well. I honestly don't think I had a Vamp Mark II. Maybe Jason did. I can't remember. But man, I love it. Over to you, Jim.
I didn't have a Vamp Mark II, but I do agree with you that I prefer the Vamp Mark II over the original. I think it's the loadout, maybe the color. I don't know. Maybe it was used on the cartoon more. But yeah, I do agree. I think this is one of those times where the second one was better than the first one.
That first wave was, a lot of OD green. It was very tied to the military in some respects. What's neat about this one is it feels more stylish, but it doesn't feel like it moved too far away from it. Like, it doesn't feel outlandish. You could see this being in the military.
Yeah. And I do like that they kept the gas cans on the back like the original. A different style of gas cans that they pegged in instead of sat in there in the cradle or bracket like the original, but they kept that connected.
So there's an actual military vehicle, U.S. Army, and they call it the Avenger. It is very much the closest thing you're going to see to a Vamp Mark II. It is a Humvee, and it is outfitted with two, can't remember exactly what type of missile they launch, but they have two pods, one on either side, and each one holds, I think, 4. I got this job between my junior and senior year of college working for a contractor that worked for the Army up at Redstone Arsenal. It was a cool job because what they had done was they took the original Avenger, which had been around for a little while. It's a standard 2-seater in the front Humvee. In the back, the missile pod swivels around up and down. There's a guy that controls all that behind like a plexiglass shield. And what the Army had decided was, man, it sucks to be the guy in the plexiglass shield when you don't have any air conditioning back there because that sun is just beating in there. It gets very hot. So what they had done was they had added an air conditioning unit. Our job as these sort of young in our early 20s working for the contractor was pretty simple. We run the air conditioner, like we just have the air conditioner running 24/7. They want to see how that would impact the functionality of the actual system. We let it run. You'd leave it run for like a couple hours. And that's usually when we would nap. You'd go out and get in it, and one of us would climb up into the plexiglass thing. The other guy would be the driver because we had to test to see, okay, let's take it over road. Let's take it over bumpy off-road. Let's take it off of some seriously bumpy off-road, basically to make sure this thing didn't break or affect the functionality in any way. So I got to spend a summer just taking this kind of basically the Vamp Mark II all over the place, having a blast, whether I was the driver or whether I was the turret guy. It was fun either way.
So you were essentially Clutch.
100%, yes.
Except Clutch has a beard.
Yeah, well.
I'm just,
Yeah. Well, that's the end of that story, I guess.
As Jarrod was talking, I pulled up a video of the Avenger, and it is very similar. We'll put a picture in there on YouTube so you guys can see it. All right. So next up, we're going to go back and talk about the original Vamp and a HAL set that was a Sears exclusive. Not going to describe it a whole lot. It's pretty much the original Vamp and the HAL, some different packaging art. And you could, again, it was a Sears exclusive, so you can only find it at Sears. The closest Sears was 20 miles away for me. I never knew this existed until I started doing research for this episode. Oh, yeah, that's right. That was a Sears exclusive. I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot because I'll guarantee that Jarrod and I probably didn't have this set together.
No change, right, Jim?
Let me see here. The 84 is identical to 82 HAL. The 84 Vamp has an updated mold with a shovel on the hood. So yes, there is a change. That is how you. Yep, that is how you.
Also, does not come with clutch.
Well, it doesn't come with anybody.
Right, comes with nobody.
Yeah. So the mold is different.
An
updated mold with a shovel on the hood. So that is how you would tell the difference if you were trying to put a set together.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
You got nothing on that. What's next?
Something I do have something on. It is the mail away only Manta. And the Manta, which I'm sure stands for something, Marine Assault Nautical Transport Air Driven. As you said, they were reaching. It's a glorified like wind surfboard. That's really all it is. It's camouflage. What do they call it? Is that called a sailboard?
It's a sailboard. We see them quite often out here in Lake Michigan. There's one area right in Grand Haven, right around the pier, that kind of gets some bigger waves. Quite often you'll see these out there.
Yeah, it was just kind of a little, I'm going to use the word cheapy, but I don't even mean it in a negative sense. Just a lightweight, real small. You could break it down. The sail itself was made out of, I want to say some kind of like a thin plastic. I got this thing. I mailed away for this and I got it, and Jason and I had it, and it was pretty neat. It's just a fun little quirky, I think, side Joe thing. I think, and Jim, you may need to jump in here. I feel like you could break it down into the backpack and someone could actually carry it with, yes, he's nodding, and I'm seeing backpack storage now on the website that I'm looking at. So it was just really neat. Just a quick personal story, but I was at Joe Fest back in 2021, I think. There was a guy who had a great t-shirt. I mean, it absolutely looked like one of those Ocean Pacific t-shirts you would see from the 80s. For those of you who remember, OP t-shirts were cool in the 80s. It looked just like that. It had the sunset. The shirt itself was probably purple. It had all those pastel colors on it. And it was like a guy just surfing on into the sunset. And you had to look very closely to realize it said something like Manta Surf Club, established 1984. And I was like, that is the most baller shirt. Only Joe fans would get it, and everybody else would think it was just a cool vintage 80s t-shirt.
I want to know where I can get one of those.
I know. That's even the weekend I got my cap, which I have laying around here somewhere. You know how the actual Navy guys have those caps of where they serve? Looks just like that.
The one time I met Larry Hama, he had that USS flag hat, and I'm thinking, I got to get one of those.
Guy came up to me, and he had a whole box of them at the show, and he was just like, hey, would you be interested in trading some of your art for one of these hats? And I was like, yeah. And so that's what we did. But yeah, that Manta shirt, I've like gone online and Googled like G.I. Joe Manta shirt, and I can't find it, but I will find it one day. Or maybe it was custom, whatever it was. God bless that guy. It was great. But let's get back to your thoughts on the Manta. And I'm going to pitch to you once again, does not come with a figure. Who do you most associate with?
Wow. This was a mail away, so I never had it as a kid. I've got one now, and I don't really have it displayed. Probably the only reason I would say is because Stalker, because he was on the mail away form.
He was indeed on the little insert form, yes.
And when they used it in the cartoon, they had multiple different Joes using it. So it wasn't one like one was tied to it.
I'm with you, Stalker on the form, and then I would often think Roadblock, because if you read his card, he's like a California surfer guy, so it made sense.
Was it
my bad, I said Roadblock, and I meant to say Rock and Roll. Rock and Roll is a surfer guy.
You look at the comic side, the early issues when they were attacking Destro at Coney Island, the girls were distracted them when they were supposed to be getting to Destro's base. It was Torpedo, and who else? Was it Rock and Roll? What I didn't realize was that it came out in 84. I could have swore it was sooner than that. You know, I could have swore it was 82 or 83. This is another one of those that when I buy a lot of Joe vehicles and stuff, there's pieces of this in every single one. They must have offered it for a long time.
According to the site I'm looking at, they offered it from 84 to 87, which makes sense because I feel like I got mine in 86.
So yeah, so 3 years, you know, and I mean, there were only 5 flag points and $1. It was 7 flag points for Cobra Commander. So it was less to get the Manta than Cobra Commander.
This was an easy sell to my mom. Wasn't big on the mail away stuff. I basically got Commander, this, and the Wolverine was the biggest thing I ever got. But this was an easy sell. Like, I got 5 flag points right here, Mom, and $1. She's like, all right, I'll put it in an envelope for you. You know, it's that easy. It's funny that you find them so much, though.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I guess, you know, most Joe vehicles and figures look like they have about a 2-year shelf life. And this one went for 3. And then apparently they made it re-released at 92 for some convention stuff. So
all over the place. Anything on the Joe vehicles before we move on to something that's new for this year?
Oh, the Killer Whale is one of the greatest vehicles ever made.
We'll get to that. All right, so something new for this year and adding to the world building capabilities are the battle stations and battlefield accessories, also known as the defense units. Now, looking at these, Jarrod, as I was getting the outline ready and getting ready for this episode, I had a hard time understanding how they separated these or named them battle stations versus battlefield accessories. Well, I guess I can see it now. So you got the bivouac, the mount howitzer, and watchtower. Yeah, I can see that. The accessories were something you could add to that. Okay.
Probably a price point difference, too. The stations were probably just a little more expensive, maybe like 50 cents or $1. I'm guessing. I'm not even looking at it right now than the accessories.
The first battle station that we're going to talk about is the bivouac.
Who's by the bivouac?
That's the dog handler, codename Mutt, and his dog Jugdog.
Which is what they call lean-to type style tent that has a cot, looks like a radio, and a mortar launcher. Yeah, a rocket launcher.
Yeah, some kind of weird looking
Yep.
rocket launcher.
Looks like it came with a rack that had a shovel, an axe, a knife, and a canteen. These are some of those things where, as you said, the price points. This one didn't have a price on it.
On yojo.com, it's $2.29. So about the cost of a figure.
Yep. These really added, like I said, to the world building. And I know I had several of these growing up.
I know I had the bivouac because this is how I found out what a bivouac is, like the definition of the word. But yeah, I had this one as a kid. And, this is, what the Joes would be doing if they're out in the field deployed, probably, looking at it more of a jungle or wooded environment, because if it was cold, there'd be, would be open air like that. And so I always associated this set with kind of like a recondo, like the guy who would be out in the jungle by himself. But yeah, we had this one. Jason and I had this one.
Just looking at this, maybe it's something we can keep an eye on as we go forward. The two characters on the box art, Short Fuse and Breaker.
Oh,
it's one of the original figures. So I wonder if they were thinking about using these earlier on and weren't sure how successful the Joe line would be. And they're like, okay, let's put them out.
Yeah, this really feels to me like, and I shouldn't have brought it up if I can't remember exactly what it's called. Here's the short version. Like poor kids' toys, And I say that because I recently found a couple of really interesting looking like space vehicles that were smaller, maybe fit like one figure. And I was like, what are these? And I even put it on, I didn't know what it was. I put it on X Twitter and said, hey, does anyone know what this is? People are like, yeah, those are Star Wars vehicles. But I'm like, they look like nothing out of Star Wars. They were these really low price point, maybe a stocking stuffer, or, if you were struggling with the finances, a little something you could get for the kid. And I think that's what we have here, and they're still cool and I like them. So there's that.
Absolutely.
The next one is the Mountain Howitzer.
And manning the howitzer?
That's the flamethrower. Codename Blowtorch.
Which is basically a howitzer cannon, and it can be towed behind. So I know you like it. And it comes with a crate of ammo and a sighting glasses. And while we're here, let me tell you a personal story of my life. That same summer that I was I was working for the Army contractor, when we weren't in Huntsville doing the Avenger testing with the air conditioning, we were in Columbus, Georgia, Fort Benning. They recently renamed it, but I can't remember what the new name of it is. Anyway, we were over there and we were following around a howitzer unit. And what we were doing there was simplest job ever. We'd roll with the unit. When they would get a fire mission, we'd basically time them. We'd start we had a little computer thing, start stopwatch. From the moment they got the fire mission to the moment they fired it, how long it took, because they were incorporating new, you see the goggles in here for the mountain howitzer. They're incorporating new sort of like electronic computerized GPS targeting. And we were testing to see, does it affect the fire rate? Can the soldiers fire as fast as they could with the old equipment? So that's all the data we were collecting. And it's still a lot of fun.
So yeah, this one, as you said, it's just a big cannon, a small trailer. I think I got a couple of them. I don't have all the accessories, the missiles and the rack and all that, but I do have a couple of the actual trailers. They're great for, just like what these are intended for, dioramas and such for added play.
Do you have any of the sight goggles? Yeah.
No. I think a lot of accessories for these are very difficult to find. Can you imagine trying to find these shells?
Oh, jeez.
Oh, yeah. So the next one, the final battle station, is the Watchtower.
Who's on the watchtower?
That's the Jungle Trooper. Codename Recondo.
And that one is a elevated platform. You can get two figures in it. It's pretty difficult, but you can do it. It came with a flag, a searchlight, a machine gun, and a couple sandbag pieces to go on the top, a ladder with a door that would open up. So the elevated platform was armored all around. So I can see this as a guard station or something similar to that. This is one that I have a couple of them. I have them on each side of my command center. I didn't have these as a kid, but for some reason, I associate Recondo with this one more than Gung Ho, and I don't know why. There it is. The commercial. That's why.
Was there a commercial? Okay.
Yep.
I was thinking there was definitely a comic issue where I believe Recondo and Gung Ho were both in it. And
that was the late 30s.
Yes, and there was a tower involved. In fact, I think they used the tower and then they destroyed the tower, maybe. My memory of it's not great. He's in the commercial, you say?
Yep. I just scrolled down and YouTube just got Recondo right there. So that's probably why I associate Recondo with it.
Yeah, looking at these three, and that was I think the last of the battle stations. I definitely had the bivouac. Don't think I had the howitzer, and maybe with the watchtower, I'd have to bring Jason in on that one. I feel like there's some familiarity with the watchtower. So if I didn't have it, maybe one of my friends did. A neat little add-on that you could set out in front of your. I was going to call it the pit, but as we found out that it wasn't actually called the pit, but we all called it the pit. Whatever the hell it was called. What was it called?
Command center.
Yeah, the command center. You set it out in front of that to add an extra layer of defense, or maybe you put it up next to your bivouac. Maybe you're defending some small area out in the middle of nowhere. They were neat little low price point toys, great for stocking stuffers, little birthday here and there, something like that.
I agree. So that brings us to the battlefield accessories or defense units. What's the first one, Jarrod?
Now we're getting to the really, really poor kids. The first one, because these are just like accessories for accessories, man. It's like these are things that you would add to the battle stations. The first one is the machine gun defense unit. And I think I had this one. It comes with, I'm just looking at the ridiculous price point of $229. This should have been $1. Anyway, it comes with like a cool sign that says restricted area, keep out. And it's got two of those sort of steel beam giant jacks, if you will, that I had to ask my dad, and that's why I think I own this thing. I was like, what are these for? My dad was like, they make it really hard for like tanks and big vehicles to get by. And then it basically just comes with a big machine gun. I can't tell if it's an M60 or a 50 caliber, or maybe it's just something made up. But that, and basically a box of ammo.
It shows on the can 50 cal.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I see it on the can now. So it's a 50 cal. You get a can of ammo. You get two basic, what I call tank stoppers, and the sign that says restricted area, keep out. And if Yojo.com is to be believed, and I have no reason to question it, $2.29 is a hefty ransom. I would not have charged as much for this as I would have a figure. This would have been like maybe that was the initial asking price. I can see a lot of this going to the clearance shelves and people going, okay, I'll give you $1 for it. They're neat enhancers. It's okay. So it's laughable now because it's really, really cheap. But as an adult, if I had found, and maybe you have, a bin of a handful of these, they could really make diorama stuff a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've got pieces of all these. I don't have any complete sets, but they do make the diorama stuff. It really brings it to life a little bit. And I've seen other people diorama set that they intermix all this stuff to make it really realistic. Now, something unique that I don't know if we missed on the previous ones, they have the figure stands. And I know they included some of them in the accessory packs. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if the next few come with figure stands or not. But back in the day, figures didn't come with stands.
Right.
You had to buy them separate.
Yeah, I only knew them to come in the accessory packs back in the 80s. Yeah.
Putting these figure stands in here is a plus. That's almost worth, maybe 20 cents of the $2.
I did not realize they had figure stands. That is very cool. Yeah. Good catch.
As you said, these are all good for diorama setups. All right, so next one is a missile defense unit. This one's got a figure stand. Yep, 2 of them. So this one has a missile launcher, a couple missiles, and a container for the missiles with a lid, with a brick wall, and a sign that says Ammo Depot with an arrow pointing. So yeah, it's just another diorama setup. I do remember having this one as a kid. I think I might have, stolen somebody's lunch money and bought it or something. No, I didn't.
Probably so. No.
Again, another unique setup for people that want to, back in the day, just add to their vehicles and their other items.
Just a handful of parts. For those few completionists out there, I was just looking. This one does have 2 versions. There's a smooth brick version and a damaged brick version. Apparently, like on the concrete walls, there's one version that has like bullet hole strikes in it, and then another one that has no bullet hole strikes in it. So there you go. Fine. Get to hunting out there, you completionists.
I was not aware of that. That's pretty neat. I only knew of the one with a hole in it. Hey, that's like the battle damage on the Rattler. You can switch them out as you play.
Well, I think either one there has the big hole.
Oh, okay.
But like on the surface of it, one of them is more textured, like with small bullet hole pockets along the way, and the other one doesn't have that.
Yeah. Gotcha. That brings us to the last one, Jarrod.
And the last one is the Mortar Defense Unit. Sandbags, 50-gallon drum of fuel oil, ammo crate, 2 gas cans, a couple of figure stands. Ooh, I forgot that's the bonus. And what the hell is that black thing? Some kind of a handle? Maybe a pump for the gas cans?
That's the mortar launcher.
Is that? Oh, okay. I had to zoom in. I was like, what is that? I forgot this was the mortar defense unit. Yeah, you have to have a mortar. It's key. Otherwise, it's just a defense unit. So, yeah, it came with a mortar and the end. That's what you get.
Now, question. Why do they have so much fuel oil and explosives around
the mortar?
The mortar defense
last
unit
I checked, the mortar did not require any fuel at all. This is just dangerous. This is like, hey, short fuse. This is basically short fuse's accessory kit, by the way. Hey, short fuse, head on over there. He gets over. He's like, why is there all this explosive gasoline here? Don't worry about it.
What are you trying to tell me? Keep saying it. This good stuff for setting up different battle stations and units. I think at this point they were successful. They were just trying to grab for every little bit of money that they could. Okay. Anything else, Jarrod?
No, it's a fun trip down memory lane in sort of the cheapy section, and I had several of them. So, like you said, squeezing those dimes. Hasbro's getting them dimes.
All right. So now is the dreaded time to pick our favorite items that we have discussed. So we have a total of 19 items between the Cobra and Joe vehicles and the battle stations and battlefield accessories. Are you ready, Jarrod, to give your top 5 vehicles or playsets?
I'll do my best. I'm going to go 1 to 5 just because I don't have anything written down or prepared because that's not how I roll. At number 1 is the Killer Whale. Number 2 is the Rattler. This is where things get a little gray. Number 3, give me that Stinger. Number 4, I will take, because it's legally required, everyone must own a Skyhawk. I'll bring that in at number 4. It's just a lot of memories there. And speaking of memories, this is the crazy choice for number 5. I still love me some Manta, so I'm taking the Manta mail away at number 5.
Those are all good choices. And I'm going to do the same, no particular order. Number 1, the Cobra Claw, the Shark, the Skyhawk, as you said, just the versatility of it, the Cobra Stinger, and the Rattler.
No whale?
Oh.
What the hell is this podcast even about?
So I'm going to go to number 6, the Whale.
Man.
It's one of those really hard to pick.
I know. It's a good year.
So tried to keep the Whale out because, I'm still holding a little bit of
the pain. I got you. The pain.
I did pick one up end of May. I picked one up. Almost. The only thing it's missing is a couple veins. I got a heck of a deal at $45.
Oh, look at you, sir. Yes, that is a heck of a deal.
It was the last day of a con. It was still sitting there. And I asked the guy how much, and he goes, and we came up on $45. He didn't want to take it home.
Nicely done. Yard sale artist approved.
Listeners, let us know what your top 5 favorite vehicles or playsets are from 1984. Also, what are some of your overall memories from this lineup in 84? Jarrod, is there anything else you would like to bring up before we move on to our last segment?
No, I'm good. I think we covered it.
We covered quite a bit. So the only thing I'm going to say is 84, 85, these are so iconic years. And
absolutely.
85 is going to be even more difficult to pick some of the favorites. Great year. The figures were great. The vehicles were great. Expanding the line. Still had a little, real military feel. So, Jarrod, that brings us to military surplus. What do we got for that?
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
All right. For military surplus, here at the Outpost on each episode, besides discussing toys or comics or cartoons of our highlighted year, we discuss a peripheral item related to G.I. Joe. This episode, we are basically going to continue our discussion from the last toy episode where we began our chat about G.I. Joe video games. Now, on the last toy episode, we discussed G.I. Joe Cobra Strike for the Atari 2600, G.I. Joe by Epix for the Apple II and Commodore 64. We talked about G.I. Joe on the Nintendo, which included the first G.I. Joe game and then Atlantis Factor. And that was good times. And there's no more video games to discuss, right, Jim?
No, there's a few more. This episode, we will be discussing 5 more games from a variety of platforms. The first one we're going to be discussing is the G.I. Joe arcade game. This is a third-person rail shooting game in which each player chooses one of 4 G.I. Joe operatives: Duke, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, or Roadblock. Up to 4 people can play the game at once. Each character either stands or automatically runs forward in a 3D perspective. Each character is armed with a gun that has unlimited ammo, as well as a missile launcher, which comes with 3 or 5 missiles and can hold up to 9. The object of the game is to find Cobra's hidden stronghold and stop Cobra Commander's latest campaign to take over the world. There are 3 missions in the game, each composed of several areas, including a chemical plant, an air base, a weapon plant, a jungle, a cavern base, and a battleship. So, Jarrod, have you ever seen or heard of this game before?
I have not. I pulled up your well-crafted outline for this show, and I clicked on the link you provided, and I was like, what the heck is this? I am a video game guy. I'm a G.I. Joe guy. I did not know this existed at all. I have never seen it anywhere in my life. I went to YouTube to watch some gameplay. It looks pretty cool. Like, it looks like the maximum amount of fun comes when you get 4 people at once. Not in game style, but in the spirit of it. It kind of reminds me of maybe the Turtles 4-player arcade or the X-Men, one of those where it's just a lot of fun to get a bunch of folks involved. It looks neat and cool, but man, up until this exact moment at 5:11 p.m. Central Time on September 15th, 2024, I'd never heard of it or seen it.
It came out in 92. It came out in 92. And I didn't know this existed until I went to Cedar Point. And I want to say it was 98, 97, 98. And I'm walking through the arcade. And I look and I said, there's a G.I. Joe arcade game. I'm like, what the hell is this? And I dropped a few quarters in and I played a couple rounds. And then I saw it at JoeCon in 2015. I think I went to JoeCon in Springfield and they had it there. Like you said, in spirit with a Turtle or the X-Men game where you got 4 people playing. It's just a straightforward shooter instead of a side scroller. If anybody wants to, there are playthroughs on YouTube that I did watch a full playthrough a month or so ago. It's pretty neat. I'm not that good of a video game player, so it would take me longer than a half hour like it took those guys.
Yeah, every YouTube video is 30 minutes for a playthrough.
I'm sure there was some editing involved in that. It's one of those that you obscure. It's kind of cool. Okay, indeed. The next game we're going to discuss is G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra. It's a movie tie-in game from 2009. It was available on the Xbox 360, the Wii, the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, the PSP, and the DS. Contains an exclusive all-new storyline that picks up where the film left off. This is the first of the 2 films that came out in those, 2009-ish time frame. You can choose from 16 playable characters, 4 of which are unlockable Cobra characters, each with a unique set of abilities and weapons. This is the first appearance of Agent Helix that would later be used in both the IDW Joe universe, and Larry Hama would use her in the A Real American Hero universe. There are many collectible items and unlockable items as well, including characters' missions, PSAs, and comic book covers. Jim, let's talk about this bad boy, which I am holding in my hand. I have it on the PlayStation 2. I've never played it. I've never popped it and played it. Judging by its quality level, I probably found it at a yard sale, but it looks like it'll play. And I have it here next to my gaming station, just ready to try it out. Have you tried it out, sir? I have played this game, and I believe I'm 100% with all the unlockables. It's been a while since I played it, but I believe I'm 100%. It kind of falls in line with the Rise of Cobra movie. It's one of those that if you go in there thinking it's going to be a Call of Duty type or a Fallout type, you're going to be sorely disappointed. But it is just a fun game to play. It has lots of Easter eggs. When I play video games, I'm one of those that I like to get everything. Like with the Lego games, with like the Marvel games and the Batman games. Oh my gosh.
Yes, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I'm 100% on those, but it took me like a long time just because I was off and on again. And you're going to probably pop your version in sometime and play?
Yeah, sometime real soon. I only bring them here into the gaming space because I have a large collection out in my man cave, and I just got to bring one in every once in a while. So this one, within the next couple of weeks, I imagine it's going to get played.
There you go. Okay. The next game we're going to discuss is a mobile game that ended way too soon. I know a lot of people that were disappointed when it ended, and that is G.I. Joe Battlegrounds. This game was released to the app stores on July 3rd, 2013, and shut down on January 5th, 2015. G.I. Joe Battleground is an all-out fight to assemble and train the most powerful squads of iconic G.I. Joe and Cobra characters. Choose your side and build teams of elite soldiers and skilled agents to take on dangerous missions around the globe. Customize and upgrade your squads with combat skills and powerful vehicle attacks. Gorgeous character art from the talented artists behind G.I. Joe-based comics and action figures, featuring characters from Real American Hero to G.I. Joe Renegades, and every series in between. At the time of the closing, there were 1,228 unique cards or characters. What stands out to me, it was really playable. My brother and I would go back and forth. We'd trade. We'd have fun with it. And when there were events, we would play together. The art on these cards, you'll find them all over the internet. You can just do a Google search and just put in a battleground art, and it is amazing artwork on some of these characters. Some you don't. It's very unique to just this game that you don't see. But the gameplay was fun. It was just one of those. It was very early on. I think it was probably my first smartphone I got. So I was enthralled with, oh my gosh, I can do this on my phone type of thing. And it's a G.I. Joe game. Awesome. Did you ever play this one?
I didn't. I had a vague awareness of it because, before we started recording, we were kind of going through these, and I was scrolling through your well-crafted outline, and I was like, Battleground. And I think I actually asked you, was that a card game? And you were like, yes. So I had this vague, distant bell ringing. You know what other franchise had a pretty neat little card game that eventually got pulled that a lot of people liked on smartphones? James Bond, actually.
Always comes back to James Bond.
Goes back to Bond. But I didn't play that one either. I don't think I've ever played one of the digital-based card games. To include the Pokemon video games. Those are, I'm not saying all of those are definitely card-based, but they kind of come from that place. And I've never gravitated towards them. I don't have anything against them. I've never really tried them. So I kind of wish I could go into a time machine and go back to 2013 and get on board with this and see what the card game craze is all about. And it'd be a lot of fun to do with G.I. Joe, I would assume.
No, it was just one of those games that unique. I wish they would come back with something like this.
All right. Maybe someday.
Maybe. I think you've played this next one because I remember you and I talking about it.
I think I have. This game is not solely a G.I. Joe game, but it has G.I. Joe and Cobra characters and vehicles as a War Chest add-on. And this game is Toy Soldiers War Chest Edition. Toy Soldiers War Chest Edition is a fast-paced, genre-bending mix of strategy, defense, and action gameplay that brings to life the iconic toys and action figures from your childhood. Lead from the strategic level, placing and upgrading turrets, or take direct command of your units and heroes to deliver assaults. Customize your loadout before battle and upgrade your arsenal while fighting through the main campaign, or grab a friend and take the fight online and multiplayer. In this one, you can turn enemy units into dust with the heavy artillery laser, or HAL as we know it, a vital component of G.I. Joe's top secret laser defense network. Take to the skies and rain havoc from above in some of G.I. Joe's signature vehicles like the Dragonfly, the Sky Striker, as well as the Trouble Bubbles and the Fight Pods. Has a lot of unique levels for both Joes and Cobras. Man, I have put hours into this game, Jim. I have beaten this game with, especially if you get this whatever special War Chest edition, you could play as the Joe toys, you could play as the Cobra toys, you could play as He-Man toys. I want to say there's even Assassin's Creed toys.
Assassin's Creed, and then some other
sort of I think, the ones the game was actually built around, they're sort of generic toys. Yep. I remember there's like a World War I German army, I want to say. There's just a bunch of replayability because each one has unique fun things that they can do with them. It's just really a tower defense game where if you build up enough points and energy, then you can hit a special button which lets you go into the battle as Duke if you're playing G.I. Joe and just start wreaking havoc. It's a ton of fun for a game that's, I think when I bought it, it was $19.99 brand new. I've seen it as low as $10 pre-played at GameStop. It's a cheap game. I swear if you're a fan of playing with these toys, you will get the value out of it. if you mildly enjoy tower defense games and you love G.I. Joe or He-Man, play this game. It's a great time waster. It's great.
This game, like you, I have spent many, many hours playing this game. I've beaten all of it on all the different, well, it looks like 4 or 8 different types of characters.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite is, I don't remember what they call it, but going in and you start out with very minimal people and points, and you build up, and the levels get harder and harder as you go. Then they get the send in his tanks and the stingers and whatever else. And I will sit there and I will spend hours upon hours just zoning out and trying to get as high points as I can. If I want to just chill and relax, this is the game I go to. This is the game why I bought an Xbox One back in the day. This was the game. I bought the Xbox One, and there was that on the shelf, and I picked it up and bought it with it.
This was one that I was easy grab for me. I had a PS4, and that's what I have it on. And I saw the He-Man on the cover, and my wife's a big He-Man fan and collector. So I was like, I bought this for you, for you in air quotes. Originally I picked it up because I noticed He-Man. Then I went, oh, wait, Joe? You can play as Joe and Cobra and He-Man? I was like, what? Yes. $19.99 brand new, I think. Why not? And I got my money's worth.
I bought this game used. And I thought, oh, somebody's already used the codes, whatever. I bought it, because I thought I was going to have to go online and buy the Joe. And, no, the codes were still good.
Nice.
I'm like, yep, all right, bring it. And I think I picked it up for like $15. So.
And you know what? I'd never played a tower defense game before in my life. I just remember I was with my buddy Jesse, he's really into tower defense games. And I was like, I've never played one of this before in my life, and I don't know if I'll enjoy it. He's like, I'll walk you through it. So, like, he kind of played the first couple times as I was getting like, oh, okay, I get the concept. And it's great. It's great.
Yep. All right. So the last one we'll be discussing is the most recent one that was released, and that is G.I. Joe Operation Blackout, released on October 13th of 2020. Many platforms, including Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Microsoft Windows. Game description: during an attack on the USS Flag, Cobra has managed to take over the world by creating a device called the Blackout Sphere, which knocked out all the electrical equipment across the globe and claimed Cobra's victory, known as C-Day. Now the Joes are being hunted down by Cobra and must figure out where their leader, Duke, is being held. Duke got captured again. Surprised. Find the other teammates. Find the other teammates and take back the world from Cobra's clutches. This game was released right around the time that the Classified series was released. And if you look at the design of the characters, this game and the figures, they're very similar. I bought the regular version. I bought the gold version, which has all the unlocked characters that you had to purchase. I think I'm like 90% complete on all the unlockables. So I'm close to getting this one completed. How about
I have
you?
played it. Yeah, I have it on my PS4, and I think I bought it after it'd been out a while. I think I bought the gold version because I want to say I remember playing as Duke early on and Storm Shadow. So those were probably unlockables in the original one. It's an interesting game in that I played it for a while. I put a few hours into it. I kind of faded on it, not because I didn't like it or anything. It's just, it's not terribly engaging. It's a lot of fun to fiddle with. It's, like I want to be a G.I. Joe guy for a while, and its art style is pretty good. And it almost feels like you could tell they were trying to make that deadline, like get it out there in time for the classifieds. And it's not a bad game. Great little time waster.
This one is similar to the Rise of Cobra.
Right.
If you're a Joe fan, you'll like it because of all the Easter eggs and unlockables and being able to play. You get to drive the Persuader, for goodness sake. But,
yeah, it's got a lot of kitchen fun factor. I think you put it best because I don't want to be down on it, but I think it really only appeals to Joe fans. Like, I don't think a guy who's come up through the Call of Duty series is going to get on board with it because I don't think it's to that caliber of polish. Joe fans, you'll have fun time wasting time with it.
Yep. I remember buying this one the day that it released. And it was 2020. There was nothing else to do. So
yeah, that's true. I do remember like people talking about it on social media, and I saw some screenplay footage. I was like, oh, it looks pretty good, and most people on social media were saying what we're saying. If you're a Joe fan, grab it. If not, let it go, and so I did end up grabbing it. It's all right.
Yeah, I think it was only like $40 original price. So what they knew it wasn't a
I probably picked up my gold for like $19.99, So
all right. So, Jarrod, if you had all 5 of these games in front of you and all the systems you needed to play them, which is the first game you would load into the system and play? And I think I know which one.
Well, that's an interesting question because the first one I would load and play would probably be that arcade one because it's such a new thing to me. Now, what you didn't ask me was which one's my favorite. See, that's a whole other one.
That could be part of the question, too.
I've got to go in on the Battle Chest. What was it technically called? Toy Soldiers War Chest Edition. That just was so charming and fun to me. It was just great. Yeah, that's my favorite one. But if you put them in front of me to say, just play one now, I'd be like, I've got to try this arcade.
That's very similar to me. My favorite would probably be, the Toy Soldiers I love it, but I wish they would bring back that Battleground. That's my favorite one of them. And I'm not really a card playing person, but just that Battlegrounds would be my favorite. Now, as you said, if there's only one, and I only had time to play one because of the uniqueness, it would be that arcade game.
Solid.
So, listeners, how about you? How many of these games did you play, and which of them are your favorite? And if you only had time to play one, what would it be? In closing, Jarrod, any thoughts?
No, this was a fun one from the vehicle discussion into the video games. A lot of good stuff here. A lot of good stuff. So thanks for bringing me back to the Outpost.
You're always welcome. Thank you for joining Jarrod and myself for this episode of G.I.Joe Outpost. Jarrod, thank you for spending time discussing these vehicles from 1984. And if our listeners wanted to contact you, where can they find you?
I am on social media at Yard Sale Artist. X, Facebook, Instagram is all at Yard Sale Artist. You can find my artwares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. And what about you, Jim?
You can find me on Facebook as Jim Meal. Make sure my profile picture is the one of me with a baseball hat and sunglasses on a beach. Also on Facebook, Timbers Toys and Customs, where I share some of the customs, which have been limited lately because of time and such. But winter's coming, so there'll be more time to spend inside and do some of that stuff. Also on X as Jim the Joe Junkie. I want to thank everyone at the LONGBOX CRUSADE Network for adding G.I.Joe Outpost to their extensive line of shows. Take a listen to all the other shows that are on the LONGBOX CRUSADE on any podcatcher or on YouTube. If you like what you hear, go to Patreon and become a Crusader Club member where you get all the access. Join us next time where we will be discussing issues 24 through 27 of the G.I. Joe Marvel comics. These 4 issues have Cobra Commander escaping, but Storm Shadow gets captured. We are introduced to 3 heavy-hitting Cobra characters, and we begin to unravel how Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow are connected. So, Jarrod, until next time, Yo Joe.
Yo.
The music themes for this show are done by musical genius Joe November. Please check out his SoundCloud at Josephline99. That's Josephline 99. You will not regret it.
Outtakes.
Anyway, welcome to the Outtakes Reel. Back to you, Jim.
I'm going to have a separate episode of just outtakes.
Nope, you're on the mutes. You're on the mute.
I was muted.
You're on the mutes. Jim's on the mutes. I
What do you think
associate Jimi Hendrix with being all along the Watchtower.
I'm a country boy, so I don't get that reference. Sorry.
Okay, it's one of his more famous songs. Anyways,
I believe I'm 100% on the Xbox version because I don't believe in PlayStations. Are those fighting words?
no, not at all.
Okay,
You're fine.
okay.
You're fine.
Okay.
Here's a random picture of a cat. I just put that in there to see if you would put one in on the YouTube version.
I can. I mean,
outtakes.
You know what? There's going to be outtake and there's going to be a picture there. Anyway.
Yes. More work for Jim.